In this episode, I explore some common phrases I hear students use when describing their experience when learning dressage naturally. So I seek to discover exactly why they say it and what they were missing before. So my hope is that this episode will help you stay more on track in your own journey. Here we go with this week's episode, Home. Hi, I'm Karen Rohlf, and welcome to Horse Training in Harmony. This podcast is about you making progress with your horse in a way that you both can love. It's about learning how to move and be in harmony. Because yes, you really can develop a horse to be both athletic and happy. When we show up as our best selves for our horses will show up for us. So let's get started. There are a couple phrases that we hear so often with students when they write an email or when we're in conversation with them. And these two phrases both just make me kind of pause out of, the honor of hearing that they're using this phrase. They just speak to me, and yeah, I just feel honored when they say it. It feels like a big important thing. So those two phrases, one of them is that they say when they started to learn dressage naturally, it felt like they were coming home, or it felt like coming home, or it felt like they were home, something like that. And the other phrase is they'll say that I'm their true north, or dressage naturally is their true north. And both of those phrases just make me stop. I mean, right now, actually, I just caught myself doing this. I put my hand on my heart and I just kind of pause. It feels like, what an honor, what a compliment. And so, of course, I'm thinking about like, wow, why, that's so cool. Why are people saying that? Why those two phrases? And my fear in doing a podcast episode about this is that, I don't want you to think it's going to be like let me talk about how great I am, kind of podcast, because it's not where I'm coming from. It's really coming from my own exploration of like why those phrases and what's happening that causes them to use those phrases, what was missing before. And I just thought, if I'm going to muse about it and turn it around in my mind, you might as well let you guys listen, because maybe it can be useful. Now, again, this is not just about, fluffing my ego, because I know that I am not the only one who has caused people to feel like they've come home. I'm sure there's other people who have programs and are teaching something and have lots of their students using those phrases. So it's really about wondering why this is happening, when this is happening, what's really happening, and at the same time knowing it's not about me. I don't think it is me or my work that people are coming home to. So even when they tell me, Karen, you're my true north, or gosh, dressage naturally feels like coming home, I kind of feel it's not really me they're coming home to. It's themselves. So I don't think I'm the true north, but that I've helped them find their own inner guidance system. So there's a Buddhist saying that he said to imagine someone is trying to show you the moon by pointing at it. The pointing finger is what guides you to the moon. Without the finger, you might not notice the moon, but the pointing finger is not what matters most. It only matters because it helped you see the moon for yourself. So I consider myself the finger pointing to the moon. Maybe I'm the finger pointing to their home that they had forgotten, or maybe I'm the finger pointing the way to put them on their path. But I'm as important as the finger pointing to the moon, which is not the most important part of the moon. Anyway, I think have I humbled myself sufficiently so I may continue without feeling like I'm an egomaniac. Okay, gentle listener. All right, so I wonder why people are saying that. Why are they saying that? And I wonder that if they have not been home, then where have they been? And if they haven't been following their true north, or if they didn't have a sense of a true north, then what have they been following? And I wonder what took them away from their home and their guidance system in the first place. So this is why it kind of feels important to me. And if I'm good at, quote, pointing at the moon, then I want to be more conscious about it. I want to make it easier for people to notice me pointing. And even better, I want them to realize how they can find the moon themselves. And to remember to look around and to listen and to feel. So I think I'll start with where I see people being before they come home. So if someone's lost, I think it's often because they've been following other people or systems or practices that maybe, quote, I'm doing air quotes, seem right or seem correct, or they are what they've been told they, quote, should be doing. But in their hearts, it's felt wrong. It's, I talk about this in the Love It or Change It talk. Like, it felt wrong. I have my hand on my heart. And now I'm going to point to my head and go, but it seemed correct. So they learned that maybe that was something they should do, but they didn't feel it was something they should do. And so when I say that, I don't mean that everything in our process, or everything, like if I'm someone's home base or if I'm someone's true north, I don't mean that everything in the process then is going to feel perfect or good or just magically feel awesome every step of the way. So that's not going to be the case. And this is where the conversation, I feel, gets kind of nuanced or paradoxical at least, because making progress in or learning anything is inherently going to have many moments of confusion. It's going to feel abnormal. It's going to feel strange. It's going to feel weird. It might feel wrong. And, that's normal. It's a normal part of the process of moving from what we can't do yet and what we don't know into what we can do and what we do know. So I think there's a difference between feeling like you're on the right track, and I have my hands on my my heart again. Like you're feeling like you're on the right track that resonates with you. There's, I guess, a trust, but there's some like mess ups, right? There's a difference between I know in my heart this is what needs to happen, and boy, am I uncoordinated at it, or, well, that didn't work magically the first few times I practiced it. Like, there's a difference between that feeling and the feeling of you're doing something that just, it just doesn't feel, I'll say right, but it's like it doesn't feel right to you. So the moments that, don't really feel right in your heart, in your soul, in the like, I don't know, like that's a very deep kind of lack of resonance. Whereas the experience is where you're like, okay, we're on this journey. We're going to go for this thing. It feels right, but like, oops, we really messed that up. Like those kind of moments don't feel like they go deep, right? They just like are, whoops, oh, that was a mess. And they're usually overcomeable or figure outable with questions, with just a little bit of trust, with practice. And then through that, there will be unmistakable improvements and results that will feel increasingly better and better and better. Where sometimes when we're not operating from our home base or we're not following our true north, there won't be those things. You can ask questions and it doesn't really satisfy you. You can do it and say you're going to trust, but it feels like maybe there was a violation of trust. You can practice, but there's not progress and results. There's not progress where you go, oh, wow, that really felt weird, but oh my gosh, it's so much better now, right? It's going to feel a little bit more like, well, I got that done. And next time it's going to be even harder to get that done. And now things feel even worse on the inside. So I guess as a piece of advice that, if you're in a situation where you thought someone was your home base but now, in your true north, and now you're in the middle of a bumpy, difficult exercise and you're starting to question and wonder, it doesn't really feel good. This is taking too long. Then what should you do? You should ask a question. If something feels weird, ask a question, get an answer. And chances are it's going to start to feel better. And because of that, you're going to experience a little more of success, a drop of success in that moment. And then it's like, oh, okay, I've got a little crack of light. I've got something to follow there. And then your trust in the process will build. You're going to feel comfortable with where you are and with where you're going. Okay, so when someone loses their feeling of true north, or the feeling that they lose the feeling of being home, I think it's for a couple of reasons. One is around their vision no longer matches the vision of the system that they are working in. And now they may or may not be conscious of this. And the other reason that you start to lose that feeling of true north or being home is that the techniques in the moment don't align with your principles and priorities, which again, you may or may not be conscious of. And you really need both of those things, right? You need to know, where are you now and where are you going, right? So you need the vision, where are we going? And you need what you're doing right now in this moment, the actual nitty-gritty techniques. And what brings you from one to the other in a successful way that feels like it resonates with you are those principles and priorities. So a lot of times I've seen people taking lessons from somebody or following a system, but they haven't really looked at the end vision of like, well, do you see what their results are? Is that really what you want? And then, and then the opposite. Sometimes you do know someone who has a good vision, but the techniques they use aren't going to resonate. So you need both. You really need both. Without a vision, you may experience success doing a particular technique, right? It's like, okay, here's this exercise. Okay, I can do the exercise. But if that exercise is not actually leading you closer to your vision, it's going to start feeling confusing and dissonant. So, an example. Let's say you're a somewhat unstable rider and your vision includes being able to ride from your seat in partnership, and you want to aim towards bridleless riding. But you're learning from someone who perhaps is really well respected in, let's say, the competition world. So they have a very different end vision. And let's say your horse feels heavy and fast and you're unstable. So they tell you to put a bit in your horse's mouth, and the horse does feel lighter and he does go slower. So you've been successful in that technique. But this success is actually going to be confusing because it seems to point away from your actual vision of riding bridleless. So you're not sure you're actually heading in the right direction, right? So that's an example of being successful with a technique, but the technique may not actually get you closer to your vision. And on the other hand, without methods and techniques in the moment that align with your principles and priorities, you're going to feel like you're going against yourself, even if they have maybe the same end point, right? So an example, you are a somewhat unstable rider and your vision includes riding from your seat in partnership, aiming towards bridleless riding. Okay, you're the same person. And you're learning from someone who does popular bridleless performances with their horses, right? So it seems like, oh, I want to ride bridleless, and they're doing bridleless. Like, they can do it. They match, your vision matches what they've accomplished. But whenever you ride without the reins, your horse gets heavy on the forehand and really fast. And they recommend that, every time the horse goes too fast, you should punish the horse by aggressively spinning him while spurring him until he gives up. All right, so you do this and your horse gives up and goes slower, making it seem closer to your dream of bridleless riding, so successful, but it actually doesn't feel good in the moment. And you're left feeling internally conflicted. So you're uncomfortable in your home. So those examples might seem exaggerated or maybe not, but I think hopefully you get the idea. And chances are, when there's a big enough obvious disconnect between, what your home base is and what your principles and priorities are and your instructors, then, you're going to make a change. You're going to look for a new teacher. But if you've listened to my Love It or Change It talk, or episode 98 of the podcast, you know that it's actually the really small disharmonies that add up to cause the biggest problems. It's those small things, the little itty bitty things that don't feel quite right that actually accumulate. And again, I'm not saying that every time something doesn't feel right, one should run away from their teacher. But if it doesn't feel right, you need to ask a question. You need to figure out, exactly what's the piece that doesn't feel right to you, and ask a question or learn more. Again, sometimes it's just a normal process of learning, and sometimes it's not. Sometimes there's too big a gap between the principles and priorities and the vision. So make sure that you clarify. You definitely don't want to be doing something at the same time that you don't want to be doing that something. I mean, that's not a good life practice right there. And that's what can make things feel disharmonious, not fun, and heavy. It can feel really heavy. And I think that's why when people come, discover what I teach, or anybody who's experienced, finding somebody who resonates more with their vision and their principles and priorities. And when they say it feels like coming home, they usually don't say, and it feels like coming home. It sounds something like this. Oh, it feels like coming home. And there's an exhale. So like, what is that exhale coming from? That's what I think about. Like, why are they exhaling? And it's exhaling because they've been carrying this heavy load. Having dissonance in your life can feel very stressful. It takes a lot of work to hold yourself in that place where your fibers of your being don't want to be in that place. So whenever something doesn't feel right, like you will be dealing with it at some point. You can choose to deal with little things in little doses as you go along, where you feel it and you clarify it. You feel it and you clarify it. Or you can wait until it's a big life crisis or breakdown later, your choice. But awareness is the first step. So that's what I'm hoping this episode is helping. So, what am I doing that's helping people feel that they've come home or feel that they've found true north? And I really believe it's built into how I teach as much as what I teach, and the empowered teaching methods that I use, and the prioritization of harmony. So harmony within oneself, harmony between horse and rider, I mean, for goodness sakes, it's Horse Training in Harmony podcast. Kind of about the harmony. So, and a big part of what I teach that I find is so, again, makes people exhale when they start discovering this, is that I let people know it's okay to trust their instincts. Or it's at least okay to feel what their instincts are. So before they start trusting them, they're going to start feeling them and to feel their feelings. And I want to hear what students are feeling. That's why I talk to them so much in my lessons. I want to hear what they have to say. So it's that's underlying belief that what they're feeling and what their instincts are and what they're thinking is actually really important, because they're the ones, being with the horse. So our feelings are our navigators, but they do need to be honed. We need to become intelligent about our feelings and to practice feeling our feelings and then saying, I wonder what that feeling is telling me, right? So I believe we are not our feelings, but our feelings are giving us a lot of good information. So our feelings also aren't always true, but I think in the moment they are true for us, right? In the moment, that you're feeling angry, you're like, no, that's really true for me. I'm angry. So in that moment we can say, yeah, but if we remove ourselves and we realize that we are not our feelings, we are just giving us information, we can say, okay, I'm not angry, I'm feeling angry. Now that's a huge shift. Instead of I am anger, I am feeling anger. And then we can look at that thing that's over there. It's not us. It's not me. I'm looking at the anger that I'm putting on the shelf. I feel anger. So I'm going to take that and put it on my desk and I'm going to stare at it. I'm going to go, why? Why are you here? And then we'll find out that it's probably not just anger. It's, not always true. It might be anger. It might be fear. It might be confusion, might be frustration, might be a whole bunch of other things. But we have to take it out of ourselves and put it on the desk and look at it. So, our feelings are our navigators. That's why I want to hear what my students are feeling, but then we look at them. And, even if they're not exactly true in the moment is where we need to acknowledge them. I mean, this present moment is a great place to start any practice, and it's actually the only place from which we can do anything. I am so happy that these days, I think there's a whole new generation of professionals in the horse industry who do embrace the journey of the student, who do understand the role of emotions and the power of being in the present moment, which is fantastic. And I also see there is a whole new generation of professionals who really are compassionate towards the horse on a whole other level and are very embracing and outspoken about our huge responsibility towards them. But here's the thing. Sometimes people come to what I teach from those instructors and professionals also. So there's, it's not just about you have to care for the horse and be responsible for the horse. There's something else going on, because there's a new set of things that are taking people away from their home base and making it harder for people to stay on track for their vision. So again, it's not just what you're doing, it's how you're doing it, and it's the culture and the community. So this is not just about people who are mean to horses. They take people off their home base, and people who are nice to horses, well, that brings people back to their home base. It's actually a little more complicated than that. So the new challenge that I'm seeing in students coming from, let's call it, the nice professionals, the pro horse, as a living being professionals, the new challenge that I'm seeing is what I kind of call the unbearable heaviness of lightness. And I'm seeing a whole new breed of student that is coming with a feeling of guilt and shame. And it's almost like the guilt and the shame of imperfection that I'm seeing now is amplified in people that are experiencing perfectly normal processes of growth. So it's something about the learned helplessness and the freezing that comes from being afraid to have their personal vision. So, and I don't know if that's coming just from, the beauty of social media, all the images of perfection and the, ripping apart of anything that's less than perfect. So, so often when something doesn't feel right, people will, tolerate it, afraid to ask a question that may seem confrontational, or they'll use it to feel bad about themselves and then start punishing themselves or their horses with words or action. And they compare their problems to the perfect picture in their heads or on Facebook. And they feel shame at their inabilities. And then they become more and more afraid to put themselves out there. And I mean, afraid to put themselves out there where maybe even afraid to take a lesson. So, this with this awareness of so many factors and all the ways that we can mess up a horse, right? With all the knowledge. And I mean, and here's the thing, because this is the paradox. We want to be aware and we want to be knowledgeable, but can anybody else relate? That can be really overwhelming, especially if your knowledge and your awareness is too far off from your abilities and you just want to go out there and have a nice ride on your horse. And, the guilt and the shame of the awareness of every time you're sitting a little crooked, or you sat a little too heavy, or you're not balanced, or you made a mistake, or, we have to be careful, because it's the most sensitive, the most compassionate, the most caring ones who are the ones who are affected the most, and who are, I see, hiding, shrinking, freezing. I mean, that's what I mean about the unbearable heaviness of lightness. It's the dark side of bringing so much light into the horse world. And this is where you've got to have courage, right? A spiritual practice, and I'll call what's happening in the horse world, in at least the circles that I float around in, it's a spiritual revolution in how we're looking at horses, how we're treating horses. But we're really in the middle, because we're out there doing stuff with horses, and I think it's totally possible to have big goals with your horses in partnership, in harmony. But you've got to have courage. You got to have the courage to get there and out there and roll up your sleeves and follow your heart and be different sometimes and create your own kind of relationship with your horse. It takes courage to strive for harmony. It can mean radically accepting some things and letting go of control in other areas. It can mean radically changing things and being okay if the process is bumpy. And, whenever, I was talking about empowering people to have their own vision. That's a big part. Like, what is your own vision? What are your principles and priorities? And, encouraging people to follow through on their visions. And often when I start talking about that, there's a little part of my brain that whispers, hey, Karen, what about the people who have a vision of like dominance and cruelty? Are you going to empower them to do what they think they want to do? Because, you could be argued that those people who are dominant and cruel, they're trusting their instincts and having their vision. But this is where I guess my optimism shows itself. I'm probably optimistic to a fault. Although, I don't know, I think you can be positive to a fault, but I don't see any downside to optimism. Optimism just said, we're going to get better, right? Positivity is like, oh, everything's fine. Well, sometimes it's not. Optimism just says, well, here we are, and I believe it can improve. So I really believe that this message about following your heart and coming home to yourself is not ultimately about catering to your every desire or every reaction. Eventually, the practice of living from your heart makes anyone more compassionate. It may be several layers down. It may take a little bit of time and a process of living from your heart, but I really believe that everybody who lives from their heart will end up a more compassionate person ultimately. Coming home to yourself is the process of knowing yourself more deeply. The place where you were before you were domesticated, before you were hurt, before you learned concepts like domination and control. I truly believe that when we really come home to ourselves, we realize that life is bumpy and how lucky we are to be alive to feel the bumps, and that every moment is just a situation in front of us. And from here we accept and adapt. And the sooner we can accept, the sooner we can adapt. And that's why the non-judgmental environment is so important to me. To simply see where we are and know it's okay. It's safe to acknowledge exactly what's happening and then to make the best decisions. Decisions from a place of joy and humbleness, where we don't measure ourselves or anyone against perfection, but we simply strive to know where we are and what the next best step is. A little more about True North. Often, if I'm doing a clinic where it's people's first Dressage Naturally clinic, I often give a talk at the beginning where I ask people to give me a list of, all the adjectives that they want to feel. And I ask the whole group and I write all the adjectives down. So we have those sort of floating in our awareness. And then later in the talk, I draw a sketch of a horse that embodies those adjectives. Kind of sketchy, but it, looks things like powerful and calm and engaged and balanced, the typical adjectives that I'll get. And then I draw, so there's the goal. If we say that's the vision, that's where we're going, right? We're pointing at the moon, that's the moon, that's where we're trying to go. And then I draw a dot somewhere on the page, and I draw a straight arrow from the dot towards that sketch of the horse, the goal. And I ask, is this my job? Is it my job to explain exactly the steps that everyone needs to take to accomplish and reach this goal? And I often get some tentative nods, right? It seems like that is a correct description of the job of a teacher. But it's tentative, so they kind of know that doesn't seem quite 100% right. So then I draw a lot of dots all over the page, some at the edges, some above the goal, some below the goal, to the right of the goal, left of the goal, close to the goal, far away from the goal. And with the dots being as infinite number of people and horse combinations as there are in the world, right? So I draw a whole bunch of dots, some of them. And then I said, and I put lots of, from each dot an arrow, pointing straight to the goal. And I said, well, is this my job? Is it my job to know exactly where each of you is and to give you a custom set of lifelong instructions that will absolutely get you in a straight line exactly to your goal? And not just you, but like everyone. Is that my job as a teacher to do that? And I see some more, nodding and shaking of the heads because, it sounds like a great idea. But at the same time, they know it's kind of impossible. It's impossible, and, it's even more impossible because the directions that you need are also dependent on where you're currently heading, right? So some of the dots on the page, they're all heading in different directions. So you might have a dot that's really close to the final goal, but they're actually in the moment heading in the other direction. And there might be someone who's really far away, but they're actually heading in the right direction. right? So this is the trouble of like, when as a trainer, when I look at a photograph, I can, or even a video, sometimes I can look and it's like people are, either praising or ripping apart the horse. And I'm thinking, well, but where was he 3 months ago? It might be hugely improved, right? Or worse. Anyway, my job, I think, is to help each one of you understand your goal and to have the courage to have your goal, to empower you to actually do it, and to help you discover your own principles and priorities. I consider myself pretty nice horse-friendly trainer, but I'm sure that there's things that I do that somebody else, it would be outside their principles and priorities, and that's fine, as long as we're not trying to work together, right? Like, everybody's allowed to have your principles and priorities. I'll just be different. My job also is to give you some ways that you can measure where you are. And that's the empowered part, and how I help people really independently problem solve. Because I give you guys ways that you can measure yourself. And to give a helpful framework, as well as, some really specific tools and exercises and techniques that will cause certain effects. And I think it's these guidance systems that cause people to feel like they've found their true north. This is the paradox. I think they describe me as true north, or Dressage Naturally as true north, because I've helped them find their guidance system. If it didn't resonate with them, I wouldn't be their true north. So again, I'm not the true north, but I'm pointing at it. I'm showing them where to look. I also do my best to help students really relax and enjoy the process. And there are ways that I consciously help with that. It's part of the culture of my groups to use phrases such as, the movement soon to be known as, right? When we're practicing lateral work and it doesn't really look very good yet. It's a movement soon to be known as haunches in, or this is an artist's rendition of my simple changes. It's something that celebrates the messy process without bringing in the shame or the guilt. It's like, I get it. This is a normal problem to have when you're at this stage. The other thing that is a really big, important part of the culture that helps students relax and enjoy the process and feel like they belong, that they're home and they're heading in a direction that they want to go, is to have a culture of support, where advice and constructive criticism is given when asked for. And otherwise, it's support. Support unless you want advice, and then we'll give it. We'll give constructive criticism. It's a culture where we embrace the productive struggle. And if you're going on a journey to your true north, you need to be able to embrace the productive struggle. That's what I talked about in the beginning. It's the moments where stuff just doesn't feel right. Oops, oh wow, that was a mess, right? And that we don't confuse that for deep problems or reasons for guilt or shame. It's the productive struggle. It's the movement soon to be known as. And we can get in there and work hard. But with a guidance system. And I think it's those things that help people feel like they've come home, to know that they belong, and that we're going somewhere together, and that we're all there to help them on their journey, and their journey is not going to look like anybody else's. That's what makes it true north. It's because it's true for them. And that they can belong, meaning they are accepted without judgment. They don't have to fit in. They're accepted without judgment. Now, don't get me wrong. If someone doesn't know where to go or doesn't know what to do, it's, of course, my absolute honor to, have you follow my own path. So some people might be saying, no, Karen, it really is you. I really am trying to do exactly what you did. That's fantastic. And, I have left a big trail of breadcrumbs, all right? I still am. leaving a rather large trail of breadcrumbs. So follow along if you want to come along exactly how I'm doing it, and that resonates with you and that feels like home and true north. Come on. So that is fine. I'm happy to give a vision. I'm happy to give a process to anyone who can't, figure out how to make their own. And at some point they might diverge and go do their own version of it or keep going. There's, I'm sure I've got doppelgangers out there. Come along for the ride. So feel free to follow me and, take what I've done, absorb it and own it. And then I'd say make it your own. And the other thing I want to say here too is that not everybody that you learn from needs to be totally your home base or your true north. Sometimes in life we pick up just nuggets here and there, nuggets that serve us, even if that whole person we learned it from or that whole person's system isn't exactly ideal or doesn't fit our total reality. And actually that is closer to, especially these days, many people's reality, where we can grab things from here and there. So just because somebody's not perfect doesn't mean you can't learn a lot from them. You can learn something without having to jump all in both feet and don't look back. Come along for a visit. So again, that's why, especially these days, we need to have, our own internal guidance systems. You don't just have to follow me blindly. Have your own internal guidance system. That's what's going to keep you feeling like you're home, where you don't have to leave to come back. Home is where the heart is. So you need to do what resonates with you. And like I said, it takes courage. Connecting with horses from the heart is not for the faint of heart. Something else I see coming up that can be, this is probably a little bit off topic, but I'll go here. That when you start listening to the horse and following, you come home to this thing that resonates with you, and then the actual process of it can be a challenge. It can be really disappointing when you want to do something with your horse and your horse says no, and you have decided to listen to your horse. Moments like that can feel like failure compared to the, quote, easier days when we didn't listen. We just did. And, I guess I feel like I have to mention that because those are the moments that might cause us to stray back to the quick fixes. The quick fixes that, quote unquote, gave us the success, but weren't part of our vision. Or gave us some sort of success but didn't match our principles and priorities because they worked and they worked fast and we got it done. It's tricky. But I think once you shift all the way, so if you're in this process of, oh my gosh, this sort of stuff, this sort of training method, really resonates with me. If you're making that shift, keep going. Because when you shift far enough, at some point, you actually redefine what success is. And then it's going to really feel like coming home. So I found it really requires a big recalibration, right? There's stuff that you immediately do and like, oh, that feels good. That feels amazing. I'm having so much fun. And then you go deeper and it's like, uh-oh. Kick and pull and get on ride was so much easier. But the harmony that you can find when you really recalibrate and go deep enough is amazing. It's a harmony between you and your horse, and it's a harmony within yourself. You can have a vision for anything you want, and it could be amazing. And when things shift, like your usually eager horse doesn't want to play, or your healthy horse is now showing pain, you can see it not as failure, but as a normal life where you simply shift to adapt. You accept and adapt to what is in front of you right now. And it is not a failure that your horse doesn't feel eager today. It's a success that you saw it and that you're adapting accordingly in harmony with this reality. If you do this from your home base of your best self and you learn how to trust your internal guidance system, that comes from that home base, So the key is always to be connected with yourself, your horse, and to be infinitely adjustable. That's the process where the magic happens. It's in the decisions made along the way that perhaps no one else can ever appreciate, but you know, and your horse knows. And I think that's the beauty of what I teach in the happy athlete training scale, where the base is happiness, then harmony, then communication, then biomechanics, and then sport-specific training on top of that. And it's that base in happiness and harmony is what keeps it feeling amazing along the way, where those imperfect moments just feel like moments, because of course we're imperfect. We just need to keep going. Because if your horse says he can't, we believe him, we investigate, and we go forward through it with awareness and curiosity. And we know our bigger picture is so much bigger than just that ride. So we keep coming back to the happiness and harmony piece that's the true foundation. Happiness is being true to yourself in the moment. Home is where the heart is. And harmony is when you're aligning with your vision. Aligning and not aligned because we're always going off course. The key is to be able to course correct as we go, right? That's your true north. Your way of measuring, your vision, that's harmony too. And all of this does not need to feel heavy. We don't have to focus on the darkness. And we don't have to change the world. We don't have to be perfect. You don't have to feel guilty. So how about we all just do stuff we love, and let's help each other be our best. Let's help each other be courageous and open and playful and curious. Things can be big and important and really light at the same time. You can be responsible and playful. It's your vision. I'm optimistic. I trust you. Are you willing to trust yourself?